you can't be good at everything. And I think it'd be a waste of your time, your own time, to not explore something because you think you're not good at it. Like
Mm.
there's no rule book, there's no instruction manual on how to live life or how to enjoy yourself. Like go have fun, like express yourself. Dance. If you're not the best in the room, who cares? As long as you're
Yeah.
having fun and you're learning, you're growing, you're evolving, that's all that matters.
I used to sob in the shower every morning, just hoping that the sound of the water would mask my agony. On the outside, I looked successful, but inside I was crumbling. It took heartbreak, reinvention, and a whole lot of unlearning before I realized this, that the life I was craving wasn't simply going to arrive, I had to create it. Most people are chasing clarity, confidence, or success, but what they really need is to feel safe enough to be fully seen, fully expressed, and fully alive. Welcome to the All Out As Is podcast, a podcast for brave-hearted humans, leaders, visionaries, and world changers ready to stop performing and start living in truth. I'm your host, Adia, mindset coach, dance educator, and walking permission slip, here to help you untangle the pressure, move with purpose, and build a life that feels like freedom. Each week, we dive into mindset, clarity, reinvention, aligned growth, lessons learned from the hard seasons, and the real behind the scenes of building a business and life that feels like freedom. You don't need to become someone new. Just give yourself permission to live all out as is. So take a deep breath and let's begin. All right. Hi, Rachel.
Hello. Hello, hello.
So excited to be having this conversation with you. This is
Ditto.
gonna be exciting. This is going to be exciting. We've got lots of fun things to talk about, and you've got quite the experience as the young professional that you are. I would
Thank
love to
you.
hear more about who you are. So, would you mind sharing? And I know we're going to be kind of sharing this podcast with both of our audiences. So, we'll both do an introduction. But I mean, you wear so many hats. You're a student, you're an advocate, you're a podcast host, you're a community builder. For those of you who may not know you yet, how can you share a little bit about who you are and the projects you're most passionate about?
Absolutely. First and foremost, you're an amazing hype woman. Like everyone needs an idea because that tee up right there was amazing. For the audiences, my name is Rachel Ratelle. I am an endometriosis warrior, and that's kind of what my mission stands as for women's health advocacy and like finding a sense of community among women to be able to empower and educate and spread awareness on certain disorders, and just health in general, revolving all around the women's health field. I founded my company about 2 years ago called Raise Your Vibe with the same intention, spreading awareness and sharing my story with the hopes of inspiring other women and young girls. And yeah, it's just been an amazing journey the past 2 years, lots of ups and downs, as I'm sure you're aware, just being a woman in general, that's kind of the price you pay. And just meeting so many beautiful people and women like you, through different avenues of expressing yourself, whether that's through art or hobbies. But yeah, that's a little bit about me.
I love it. And I believe our shared avenue and community is our country dance community.
Yes, yes, it is.
Yes. Okay, so this is kind of funny, and I just think it's so amazing how the world works. Um, I've seen you in like various locations. I know you're like kind of San Diego, California. Maybe I've run into at whatever venues down there. Honestly, it gets a little cloudy for me.
It does. No, me too. It does. There's so many people and the community's so tight knit. You're like, whoa.
Yeah, so but we connect, but so I've seen you, but the actual connection happened because your mom had been trying to get a hold of an event
Yeah,
and I wasn't involved in that, but my number came up. And so, and anytime anyone's trying to get a hold of, someone regarding whatever it is, I try to be present and attentive.
yeah,
Like you're getting me. And I want people to be happy and taken care of. And so it was so bizarre that that's how we ultimately got connected, because I was talking to your mom, and she asked me a question after I shared a teeny bit of like just my story, or whatever had brought us into that conversation. And she was like, "Man, I really got to know, like, what are you passionate about?" Like, and so it went from just being just like a client, call, to me sharing a little bit of my story. And she's like, "My daughter, Rachel, she's doing this and this." And I was like, "Oh my God, I need to talk to Rachel." And then it turns out you're just down the street.
No, literally, I know. It's kind of amazing how the world works like that. But yeah, she was reaching out on behalf of one of the dance conventions because I was actually really sick from one of my flare-ups. And like this was like the midst of when my health was taking like a downward turn, because that's kind of how it works with endometriosis is as much as you try to prepare and set yourself up for success in terms of like your own personal health and well-being, there are just environmental factors that make things worse. So whether that's, work or stress or, allergies, whatever it may be. And at this point, I had been preparing to go to, I think it was the Yes convention, maybe. This was like a year ago. And I got really sick and I like couldn't get out of bed. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to be able to compete. I can't even get out of bed. And so I'd been trying to come in contact with like, different people through the convention asking for like advice on like what I should do since I missed out on it, but then also advice on like future upcoming events. And I don't even know how your name and number came up. Like that is so bizarre to me. I don't know. It blew my mind because I like it always like seen you and heard of you through like mutuals, through like coastline country and starlight, and I just like didn't know there was this whole other, side of you. And once you reached out to me, I was like, oh, this is beautiful. This could be an amazing conversation.
Yeah, so cool. So I mean, I'm sad that you missed the convention, that you were sick. I'm so glad that we are connected here all this time later.
hmm
So cool.
What's interesting too is I got into country dance and just dance in general about a year and a half ago. I went to Stampede. That was like my first intro to the dancing, which is quite the place to be, introduced to that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Things going
Stampede.
on, lots
Yes.
of things.
Oh yeah, lights and people and loud music, all the fun stuff. And I remember just being in awe that night. Like literally jaw was on the floor. I was like, how do all these people know all these dances and everyone's so like smooth and there's like this beautiful connection between people that I've never met, this, that, and the other. And my first ever individual like lesson that I went to was at Starlight, and you were teaching with
Oh,
your son.
that,
Yeah, yeah. And I was sitting next to my friend Christian, and I literally like this is me. I was like, I was like, she's amazing, he's amazing. This whole dance community is so cool. So that's like another hidden layer of just like paths crossing and just how amazing the world works.
wow, that
Yeah.
is cool. Thank you for sharing that. Oh my goodness. And are we talking about Christian Tobias?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, love him.
Yeah, he's awesome.
He's been a part of my dance journey from the very, very, very beginning.
Yeah,
So, and it's like I feel like he's like an angel, because he just
he
always pops
is.
up in
No, he
like
does.
all the little relationships.
Yeah.
He's such a peacemaker, Christian chef.
Yeah. Yeah, no, seriously, Christian shout out. He would spend hours with me at some of these like dance studios and lessons and things like that. Just like really focusing on like helping me. Like I would ask for help and he would just dedicate all this time. And I was like, you people are so kind and like generous, like not a lot of people would do that. And I just think that's the beauty with the dance community in general and being able to express yourself through like a hobby. And so immediately I was hooked. I was like, these people are cool. This, hobby is amazing. I feel like I'm able to express myself. But yeah.
So cool. Well, and I experienced something very similar, like when I first started dance, because I was actually in a really deep depression. It was the darkest time of my life. and I really saw no hope for tomorrow. And it
Hmm.
was a last resort to kind of just maybe find something that might just, get me excited to wake up in the
Yeah.
and lo and behold, I found my first country bar, and it was people like Christian that
Yeah.
kept me coming back. And so it was, them just being encouraging and saying, "Put your stuff here." I mean, to walk into a new,
Yes. And
especially like
not know anyone. Yeah.
exactly. You walk a new place, you know nobody, everyone seems to know what they're doing, have their people. And when this community like welcomed me and let me put my stuff by theirs and said, "You're coming back, right?" And
And
supported me,
inviting you to places too.
yeah, outside of just what was going on. It's like next thing you know, you're invited to Friendsgivings and
Yeah.
beach parties, and
Yep.
it's like, wow, what an incredible community. And so it started dance and the community. Whenever I say dance saved my life, I typically also mean like everything that revolved around it. It was the
Right.
music, it was the choreography, it was the
Right.
community, it was that whole vibe. And I just want to like, I want to provide more experiences like this
Mhm.
for people because nobody knew where I was. Nobody knew like where
Right.
my mind was, where my like state
Right.
was when I entered that. And so the same can go for everyone who walks into those spaces. Like we don't know where they are. So I want to just continue to provide and create experiences for people to have just these magical moments, whether
That's
they're
beautiful.
yeah, whether it's the best day of their life or the worst day of their life, it doesn't matter. Both are important and we never know where
Right.
people are. So tell me a little
Right.
about like where were you? Where was your life when you found Stampede?
A beautiful question. So kind of a little bit similar to yours. I had been going through a pretty rough patch. I had been diagnosed with endo. I think it was 3 months before that. Not even 3 months. It may have been 2 months before that. And prior to before that, let's take it a step further and go a little bit back into the past. I had been playing competitive soccer for about 18 years, and that like took up my life. Like that was a big form of my identity.
Mm,
And like through high school, I was playing soccer pretty much every day. I was commuting from Carlsbad to LA and Irvine and Orange County for practices and games 5 to 6 days a week for 4 years, while also doing like AP classes, IB classes. It was a lot.
wow.
And yeah, and my shout out to my parents, absolutely the most supportive, kind, encouraging, amazing people of all time. I could not have been able to do all of that and more without them. And I genuinely thought soccer was going to be like my life.
Mm,
So I was on this journey with the end goal being playing college soccer. And so my junior, senior year, I'd been getting offers to a bunch of different colleges, like in the middle of the country, but nothing great academically. And while I knew like soccer in college was a big goal of mine, I also wanted to do something that was more like academically satisfying, and like more like I could add value besides soccer,
mm,
more than just an athlete, also like a person with, ideas and goals and a vision. And COVID ended up hitting my senior year of high school. So kind of ruined all chances of, going to play. I got into UCSD and ended up playing semi-pro for a few years
wow.
locally. Yeah. And I took like a year off. There was a little hiatus. We're giving the Spark Notes edition here.
Totally.
But soccer was still my life at that point, and I could not see life without it. Life without not even just soccer, just being active. And sorry, I'm going to turn my notifications off. I was always running. I was always at the beach. I was always working out, whatever it was, I was just very active. And looking back, I did have a lot of symptoms that went unnoticed. And I think a lot of that was because of kind of like the societal pressure and expectation, not
Mm,
only as an athlete, but also as a woman to be like, oh no, you're okay. Like that, and with mental health, like there's such a stigma of needing to be okay. And if you're not, then that's just not acceptable. and showing up, like you have to show up on your best behavior or feeling your best, and that's just not true, nor is it possible. Like we're not perfect. We're
Hmm.
humans. And so I think I actually neglected a lot of those symptoms in myself just because I believed that was part of what it meant to be a woman and an athlete playing at a high level. And then eventually, my last season of semi pro was my junior year of college. I got really, really sick, kind of randomly, like overnight. And when I mean by sick, I mean like almost paralyzed, like could barely walk. Yeah, like could barely walk, like barely eat, couldn't keep anything down, could barely walk around the neighborhood walking my dog,
Oh
all
God.
while at university.
Oh.
Yeah, so like even walking to class was hard. I had to get ADA accommodations, and like there was the opportunity to get like carted around if I ever needed it. And obviously, like COVID changed the landscape of work and also school environment. So luckily, I was able to do a lot of my stuff remote. So like a lot of classes and even making up like quizzes and things like that I could do on my own schedule, which was a huge help. But there was very similar to what you were saying, like no hope in sight. I was like, how do you go from being a like top elite athlete competitor in a sport you've played your whole life
Mm.
to barely being able to eat a bowl of rice and walk around the block?
Oh my
Like
gosh. What was the timeline that you like got sick and next thing you know you're getting help making it around campus?
so I started experiencing like the onset of symptoms was summer of, I think it was 2023. It was right before my senior year.
Mm.
And for the first few months, it was just like incessant blood tests and lab tests and like in and out of the emergency room and doctors' offices. And nobody knew what was going on because endometriosis isn't something that comes up on the blood test, at least not yet. And like besides endometriosis, I had so many like underlying root cause issues going on too with like inflammation and things like that. But those aren't things that always come up on, blood tests and to your like, primary care provider. They don't know. Like not
Hmm.
yet. Um and so for like 6 months, it was a lot of, oh no, you're just a woman. Like you're fine. Like this is probably just like a bad period, or like, oh, like maybe you just have really bad anxiety. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like I have anxiety, I have depression, I've had that, before all of this happened. This is a different story. This is like physically harming me. And this is not okay. Like I can't live like this forever.
Mm.
So I ended up doing my own research on all my symptoms. I kept like strict diaries on what was going on and with like tracking everything that I ate and activity levels. So incredibly detailed, and found some influencers of all people on social media who have endometriosis, and they were sharing their story and it sounded very similar to mine.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so I like reached out to some of them, asked them questions, and then found an OBGYN specializing in endometriosis related cases in La Jolla. And within like 5 minutes, she was like, "Oh, you for sure have this."
Oh wow.
Yeah, which was scary, but also like weirdly validating, when you go from not even just the 6 months of being denied, but years. Like I had been having these symptoms and these issues since I was in high school. Painful periods, super fatigued, like getting 8 to 12 hours of sleep and feeling exhausted, nausea, food allergies. And for 8 years, it was like, no, you're just a woman. Like, that's okay. Like, that's just how it is. And to hear someone say to your face finally after that long of a battle that this is not normal, there are people that have your situation, but that doesn't make it normal or
Mm.
healthy. And so that was December. Then they put me on the books for an emergency laparoscopic excision surgery to get the proper diagnosis. It's the only way, gold standard, to get diagnosed for endo, and then also remove it if there were to be endometriosis lesions. So January of last year, I had my surgery, and they said it was the worst case they'd seen in someone my age. Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
yeah. So it was on like my ovaries, my uterus, my pelvis, rectum, colon, and somewhere else. I can't even remember. It everywhere. Yeah. Which is bizarre to me how you can like harbor all that for years
Uh,
and nobody could know.
oh
Yeah.
my gosh, what a story. My goodness.
Yeah.
So what was the treatment and how did it make you feel and how do you feel now?
Treatment is kind of an interesting situation because it's kind of varies per case. I would say like the first step is typically diagnosis through laparoscopic excision surgery. And then, like, depending on how severe it is, your recovery time could take longer or shorter. Um, I had underlying issues, like I had mentioned. So they had discovered bacterial infections in my stomach from like being in and out of the hospital and having so many procedures. Um, Postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. So I know big words. Yeah. Um, like my heart rate would spike really high and then like go really low, just from sitting down and standing up. I was having basically reactions to my own cells releasing histamine. So anytime I would eat something that I was allergic to, or exercise too hard, or even like be in the sun, my cells would release too much histamine and then attack itself, which is called MCAS. And so, as I'm recovering from the surgery, which is already a lot, you're in your senior year, you just went from playing semi pro soccer and having all these things like lined up for you to being bedridden.
Mm,
You start to wonder, okay, what else is going on?
mm,
Like how long could this take? And the surgeons had told me that it would be like 4 weeks or so until I could be like running full speed and feeling perfectly fine. So 4 weeks comes around and I can still like barely run. And
mm,
I'm still like super sick. And so like every day that's passing that I'm realizing, oh my gosh, I'm not really like getting better. The idea of returning to my old lifestyle and just returning to who I was before the surgery just slowly started like fading away. And it was like you're just reaching for this thing that's like
mm,
slowly running away from you, which I think was probably the hardest part of recovery, from diagnosis and surgery. And I think a lot of women can relate to that, is like that mental acknowledgement of like you're most likely going to be a different version of yourself post surgery.
mm,
And that's a lot to take in, you know, your day to day looks different, what you eat looks different, how you show up for yourself looks different, but you learn to empathize and, nurture yourself because you didn't ask for this.
mm.
So how are you going to support yourself moving forward? Which is how I got into dance.
That was the most perfect full circle segue into wow. But my
Yeah.
goodness, that's so much to deal with, especially at such a
Hmm.
young age, and how crazy
Yeah.
that you were the worst case they'd ever seen at someone your age.
Yep. And this
Wow.
is like the top surgeon in Southern California. So it's not like she sees like 5 patients a year. It's like thousands per year. Yeah.
Wow. And would you say that the symptoms or the situation got worse due to your high activity and
Yeah.
lack of like rest and all that? Just being an
So
athlete that way?
it's kind of complicated because exercise and activity is supposed to be good for endometriosis because the more
Mhm.
stagnant you are, the more like lactic acid builds up and like tissue gets more like firm instead of like loose and flexible. But playing at such a high level and constantly like using all your energy and not even just like your main energy, like your reservoir of like backup energy. I think that probably didn't help, at least with like the histamine
Mm.
release and things like that, which I didn't realize even right after surgery. That took a whole other year to get a diagnosis for that. Like I'm still getting diagnosis or diagnoses for things. And it's just been like a year post surgery of really figuring out how to navigate what's going on and how I can support myself, like activity wise and diet, things like that.
Mhm. And so how has dance played into that?
So about 2 or 3 months after my surgery, I had been low activity levels. I'd tried to get back into running, tried to get back into soccer, but every time I tried, I'd get really sick. And I was like, you know what? Let's just put that in the back of our mind and we can re-explore that later. Like there's no rush. You're, 22. Um, and one of my friends from work ironically was like, Rachel, let's go out tonight. Let's go have fun. Like you've had a rough year. Let's go, have fun, explore something different. And that's when we went to Stampede. And I realized, like, in a soccer game, you can't just tell the ref or your team, like, hey guys, I need a break, let me just walk off the field. Whereas, like, with dance, like, dance is definitely a hard sport, absolutely. But you also have, like, your own pace that you can go. So if I am not feeling well, I can tell my partner, I need to take a break, and just sit and watch the rest of the dancers for the rest of the night. And so immediately I was like, oh, this could be good for me, to mentally be able to express myself and also have like that kind of escape, while also not pushing myself too hard. And like learning something new is always good for you and fun. So why not give it a shot?
Yeah. Well, and with dance itself, like a lot of people have the mindset that they can't dance, or if they've never danced as a child or, brought up in a studio, that this is not something for them. So what gave you the confidence to just get out there on the dance floor?
Actually, a really funny question. I've always loved dancing, like not even just partner dancing, just dancing. When I was young, I did dance, I think most little girls do when they're teeny tiny. I did ballet, I did jazz, I did hip hop, I did gymnastics. And I actually did most of those until I was like 12.
Okay.
Um, but when I was in college, I always loved like going out to bars and clubs and even just like at friends' houses, just dancing to music.
Okay.
And people would be like, are you a dancer? I'm like, no, I just like to dance. Like, it's fun. I've always enjoyed it. I don't know where I got that from. My parents are not the best dancers. They have fun, but I genuinely don't know where it comes from. And I've always also kind of been unafraid to express myself, even if I'm bad at something
Mm,
or not, the best in the room at something, because like you can't be good at everything. And I think it'd be a waste of your time, your own time, to not explore something because you think you're not good at it. Like
mm.
there's no rule book, there's no instruction manual on how to live life or how to enjoy yourself. Like go have fun, like express yourself, dance. If you're not the best in the room, who cares? As long as you're
Yeah.
having fun and you're learning, you're growing, you're evolving, that's all that matters.
It's so true. That's a message I love, like sharing with people as I create these experiences, or whenever I get the honor and opportunity to teach. I try to remind people like you are on your own journey. Your journey
Hmm.
looks different than everyone else's, and there's no like rhyme or reason to try to compare it to anyone else in this room.
Right.
And so enjoy yourself, like enjoy your journey alongside other people's journeys, but it's
Right.
yours. And I have a little bit similar background in the gymnastics. Well, in the love for dance and in the gymnastics. I never was really enrolled in ballet or jazz. Only I took 6 months of ballet when I was a gymnast, and I like hated it with a passion. And I was already older, so I was like the tall kid in the 70s.
Oh yeah. And
You
there,
know,
yeah, there's all these little kids showing you up and you're like, really?
exactly, because it's like the level one, and
Yeah.
and so everyone's young for the most part, and so I was just embarrassed. I hated it. I will say it did improve my gymnastics, like my beam and my floor routine significantly.
Interesting.
Yeah, I didn't see the difference. I couldn't tell, but it obviously was making a difference.
Yeah.
So, but you know, I came from what I would say is a non-dance background, and
Mhm.
I did do cheer in high school, which definitely has dance elements, and
Right.
I think is really helpful for like was helpful for line dance in general because there's
Yeah.
lots of similarities. But more than anything, I think, you know, with partner dancing, with line dancing, different genres where you're able to express yourself to different genres of music and different
Mhm.
types of flow, like whether or not you're good, it doesn't matter. It can still
No.
feel so good. It can still do things in your body that you don't even realize, you know, are having such healing benefits
Right. No, it is.
just by simply doing it.
Where do you think you got that realization from? Like, was there a specific moment where you started to like realize this like healing essence from dance?
Yeah. So I would say it was a series of moments, but I probably started feeling it right away, but I didn't realize that that's what it was. I thought it was
Mhm.
just more the community, like feeling good because people made me feel good, not
Mhm.
necessarily realizing that it was actually the dance itself that was also playing a part in my healing. And I mean, if I could paint it as a picture, I would literally say like healing butterflies like going through my veins, just like
Mhm.
mending the holes and you know the getting rid of the toxicness and just bringing light and sunshine into me. But it was at an event that I went to called the Vegas Dance Explosion, where for the first time I was introduced to like a waltz line dance. And so the music
Oh.
was so different. I
Mhm.
don't remember exactly who it was. I think I want to say Kane Brown, but I don't remember the song at the moment. I could probably find it. But it was that class, me in the back of the room, feeling like I was able to almost like pour out my soul. Who knows what the heck it looked like? Like, honestly, my feet turn in, my arms are like barely graceful. It probably looked like a flailing, like bee, not a butterfly. but but it didn't matter because what it felt like was
Right.
bliss. And in my mind, I was looking like Dancing with the Stars.
That's all that matters.
Exactly, but it really truly is.
Yeah.
As I allowed myself to continue to just dance fully and dance all out as now
Right.
that's kind of how my brand got started of all out as is, or originally it was dance all out with Adia or all out dance with Adia. But that's like, that is really where I felt, I mean, if it was a physical, like tangible healing, I felt like there was like literally
Yeah.
healing going through my veins when I would move to the music and be able to really
That's
experience
beautiful.
those moments. Yeah.
Isn't that beautiful how like an event, an experience, a group of people can create that kind of experience memory for you
Oh,
for
yeah.
so many people? Like
Oh,
everyone's experience is so individually tailored to them, but you never know what an event, creates in someone's mind.
oh yeah. And I mean, I tell the story all the time, and I always try to give so much gratitude to the people who started it because for event directors, it's a lot of work. And
Mhm.
for instructors, it's a lot of work. And for anyone who gives of their time to energize other people through a gift that is their passion or
Mhm.
if it is their business, like it's a lot of work and energy. And I don't think that people really realize that gravity.
Mm-mm.
So I'm always going to be grateful because I'm like, dude, you guys, you don't even realize the movement that you started because of simply the opportunity. And then, of course, there's layers to that because there's the musicians, the artists, the people who put the music
Yeah.
together, the songwriters, and then there's the choreographers. Like all of those work so cohesively and beautifully to create this moment. And it was a moment that completely changed my life and has changed the landscape of our country dance scene
Yeah.
here in America with all of the, you know, I started the Edge. Well, I don't know if you know this, but I started the
Yeah.
Edge dance event, and that was the first of this new wave of country dance events that now are all over the country with different organizations throwing them, like the one that brought us here together.
Like amazing. It quite literally blows my mind. That's
Yeah,
amazing. Like such
yeah,
a beautiful domino effect.
yeah. I'm so grateful for it. So grateful for it. What I love what you shared was how it was influencers that ultimately helped you recognize that your symptoms were actually symptoms and this was something to pay attention to. And I think it's so incredible when people use their platform to share, to educate, to simply be vulnerable and let people see, because it's it provides opportunity for healing for they'll never know. Like, they will never know
Right.
the impact. We will never know the impact that we have on the masses. So tell me more, like, I wanna know more about what you're doing, because I know that you are an influencer, sharing your story and motivating people, and yeah, tell me about it.
Yeah, I think, well, I know everyone has a unique story tailored to them, and it would be a shame not to share that with people. I mean, think about your instance too. Like, if you didn't harness that feeling of, the butterfly's magic coursing through your veins and how transformative that was for you, if you didn't harness that and you weren't vulnerable enough to share that with other people, who knows, what the effect would not have been. You know what I mean? You see the effect that you currently have on the dance community across the country, and that's just amazing because you were vulnerable enough to share that, and be open and share your story. So first off, I commend you for that. It's never easy to share your story sometimes when it does, require vulnerability, but it also just makes so many more people feel less alone and more enriched, through the community, which was my intention and goal. I had seen the effect that these other influencers and role models and spokespeople for the women's health community had an impact on, healthcare matters and, just being a woman in general in today's society. And I immediately knew that I wanted to create a similar rippling effect to other people. Like you said, you don't know truly the effect you have on the masses, but if you've been impacted truly, like to your core, you want to create that change, and so that's kind of what I was seeing out. So I had no initial like plan or goal. I just knew I wanted to make a difference. I knew I wanted to share my story. I knew for a fact there was at least one other person out in the world, whether they were like in the neighborhood next to me or in a different state or in a different country or continent. I knew that there was someone out there that had a similar experience to me. And I could not deal with the fact of not sharing my experience and letting them feel alone.
Mm.
So it was more so out of a state of like wanting people to feel less alone and empowered in their stories and their journeys, because there's nothing worse than going through something like a hardship and feeling alone. Like, the mind really does like play tricks when it comes to mental health and physical health. Like, you can feel so lonely sometimes, but it's so important to understand and feel like you're not alone because you aren't.
Well, and just to speak to that, like, your story is so unique, and yet there are probably dozens of people, dozens of girls at your age who had that experience, in high school, who are dedicated to a sport, who, like, we can feel sometimes like, but is there anyone else in the world that has my experience?
Right.
And I think the reality is yes.
Yeah.
In some way, shape, or form, yes, and we don't have to go
Yes.
through it alone. And I want to hear your story, but I also just wanted to insert that, like, I went through it alone. I went through my depression alone, and the reason why I choose to be vulnerable is because I don't believe anyone should.
Right.
And so I know that us sharing gives people permission to, like,
To
open
open
up.
up. Yes. Like, what a beautiful thing that is. It takes a lot of courage and bravery and vulnerability, but the amount of people that you can impact through that is, it's just beautiful. I mean, talk about healing. It's such a healing, transformative feeling to know that you're not alone and that, you do have a community that can support you and encourage you. And, very similarly, I wanted to serve as like that sense of home for people or inspiration where they could, find me through either social media or at dance or, on my website or at an event, wherever it may be, that they could come up to me and they could share anything whether it was about mental health or physical health, and I could provide that sense of community and understanding and hopefully inspiration to get them on a better track. And that's kind of where I am. So I've done like, some charity events and fundraising events. I've had some like interviews with the news and spoken at colleges. But my favorite part about it is just connecting with other women and uterus havers, to hear the shared experience, which at first is obviously hard to hear. I would never wish mental struggle or physical struggle like endometriosis or PCOS on anyone, but when you do find those people that share that similar hardship or story and you like unite together, it is a beautiful like bond.
Yeah. And do you find that every time you share, you have people kind of come out of the woodworks?
Oh yeah. I still have people coming out of the woodworks from my like interviews that I did in March of this year. I had like people contact me from England, from like Ireland, like random places. I'm like, that's amazing that, your little phone can do that. I sound like a grandma, but it's like, it's true, like you post
True.
something on social media and if you are genuine, you're showing up authentically and genuinely and you have a story to share and to tell, like people appreciate that and are drawn to that. And that's what I found. And so I had people, reaching out to me saying, "Are there thank you for sharing more about women's health and advocating for change." I've had like partners, I've had husbands and spouses reach out to me asking for help because their wives or girlfriends are really sick, which I think is like so sweet. Like they're
Mm.
trying so hard to help and to find a difference, and to think that I could inspire even one person out there is like so incredibly fulfilling to me. It's like a dream.
Oh, that's so incredible. Using your pain, using your vulnerability, using your experience to serve others. That's huge.
Turning pain into purpose. You get
Learning from
that.
this. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's what's been amazing for me is how when people kind of come out of the woodworks per se, they may be people that I've already met. They may be people that I thought that I knew, but they have this thing that they've been dealing with.
Hmm.
And again, just like being willing to share. Now it's pretty easy for me to share. There are times that I get a little like kind of protective. But at the same time, I'm like, man, this me sharing frees people, and freedom is just one of the biggest gifts we can give. But I love it when they feel that next level of trust to open up, because when I hear someone share about experiences that have been taboo or they've gone through silently, like I know that they are on the brink of a major breakthrough, and that freedom is like they're breathing in freedom right now. They don't even realize
You
that.
can feel it.
Mhm. It's like the weight is dropping, and you're doing that every day. Tell me about your walk. I know you did a walk in March.
Yeah, so that was my first official like endometriosis centered event through my company Raise Your Vibe. It was advocated like, through lots of different platforms, but I collaborated with the Endometriosis Foundation of America. So they helped sponsor the event, and we had like dozens of sponsors, which shocked me. Like for my first event, I was blown away. We had like Starbucks sponsor, we had Goriana jewelry sponsor, um, Krispy Kreme, Tender Greens, like so many. Just like
Wow.
seeing the love pour in from the community of people who, like some people who really do know about endometriosis and women's health burdens, and some people who know nothing at all, but just seeing that support was so heartwarming. And then the actual event itself was everyone's first event, I think, is an interesting experience. Like you always look back and you're like, oh man, like how did I forget this, that, and the other? You totally get that. You're an event
Totally.
planner.
Oh, totally.
And like I'm just cracking up at some of the things I forgot, like little like setup lists and like check-in forms. Like I had to check in everyone manually, like with a piece of paper and which I thought made it more, intimate and funny. Because I'm new to the whole thing. But seeing like we had almost 100 people show up. Yeah.
Wow,
And like 80% of those people were people I'd never met before.
really?
Yeah, it was amazing.
And did they have a diagnosis? Were they just supporting the cause? Did they know someone? What would you say the demographic was?
Most of them have or had endometriosis, um, or knew someone that had endo. So there was one group that had like I think it was like two girls had endometriosis or young woman had endometriosis, and they brought like 20 of their family members and friends. And so they were all just like supporting them because it was a walk, and uh they all wore like matching t-shirts, fighting for the cause and everything, which was so sweet.
That's so
um
official of your first event.
I know, it was really really cool. It was amazing. I had some incredible inspirations, people that I like grew up with working with nonprofit organizations, and even my parents. So they definitely helped me kind of handle all the little details.
Mhm.
Um, but overall, just an amazing experience. Very raw, very vulnerable, um, but also incredibly empowering. Seeing everyone come together and share. Lots of people share their stories, lots of tears, but not in a sad kind of way. Like not really sad tears. It was like, oh my gosh, I'm not alone, like seeing all these people, and there's so many more, but seeing all these people tangibly have this, burden that I also carry. We're in it together, we can advocate for change and support one another through this process. You don't have to do it alone.
Yeah. And is endometriosis like one of the less supported or like studied, researched conditions?
Yes. So I'll give a little excerpt context on what endometriosis is. I probably should have done that in the beginning, but that's okay. Endometriosis is the condition where tissue similar to the uterine lining grows outside the uterus, and it can grow anywhere. So they've found endometriosis on the brain. They've found it. Whoa, that was cool. My camera just zoomed in and out.
That's so
They found it on the brain. They found it on, obviously in the stomach, outside the ovaries, like lots of bizarre locations. But the most common location tends to be around and near the reproductive system. And each case ranges per person. But the most common symptoms tend to be, painful periods, painful intercourse, GI issues is a huge one. Um, Lots of bloating, food allergies, which can be difficult because that sounds like so many other conditions,
totally.
which makes it even more difficult to diagnose.
Mhm.
And it's a condition that affects at least 1 in 9 women, which is not rare. That's like what, almost 12%.
Yeah.
And scientists and researchers are thinking it's higher than that. But because it's so hard to diagnose and so many people get misdiagnosed, like there isn't even clarity on how many people have it.
Mm.
But most women and uterus havers get their diagnosis typically between the ages of like 30 to 40, and experience symptoms for at least like 8 to 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So through high school or college, women are suffering with these symptoms and not knowing what's going on until they get a surgery.
Mm. And I remember you said earlier, like starting with the diagnosis. So if you feel like you meet the symptoms, would you suggest people go straight to like an endometriosis specialist?
Absolutely. I think part of endo too is also process of elimination. So because there are so many other similar conditions that you can have, like getting the tangible blood tests that like most every primary care provider can provide to make sure that you don't have certain things, get that taken care of first, because obviously you don't want to go straight into a surgery unless you know you are, you're confident that you have endo. So taking care of that first, which can be helpful. You can get guidance through an OBGYN who does special in endo, or even like myself, I have a list of, blood tests to get on my website before you go see an OBGYN for ultrasounds and things like that. And then once you do take care of that, seeing an OBGYN that specializes in endometriosis and related conditions, getting an ultrasound, sharing your symptoms with them, and really just kind of hearing out what they think, because they've seen so many cases. They'll know based on what you're saying. You know what I mean? Like, it's not going to be shocking to them, to, these female OBGYNs who are like, oh, I've heard this story 1,000 times. And
God.
then from there, you can either progress to getting a surgery or, XYZ.
Mm, that makes sense. You said something earlier that I had really wanted to ask about, especially at your ripe young age. Like you, you've been on the planet for a little bit of time, but you've gone
Yeah, like
through.
23 years old.
So you mentioned like when you were going through the thick of that illness your junior year, I believe. And then I think coming out of the surgery, the idea that you're going to be a different person coming out of that. So like on a mental health level, how did you respond? How did you cope? And what are some strategies that you continue to use
Yeah,
as you're growing into that person?
beautiful question. That was and still is probably one of the most difficult aspects, um, particularly because it's not a condition that you can always physically see. You know what I mean? It's not like I'm walking around with a broken arm and I'm like, oh, I'm in a lot of pain. It's these invisible chronic illnesses, like, mental health issues as well, where you're actively struggling, but people don't always see that. And so I feel like there are certain aspects that I have persistently had to overcome. So like how I show up in a crowd full of people, whether it's people I know or people I don't know. If I'm having an off day and people don't know what I have, sometimes it's difficult to express that and share like what you're experiencing and the needs that you need. You know what I mean? Like if I'm out at a bar with a bunch of friends, and everyone's lively and having fun, but I'm really sick because maybe I'm on my period, expressing that I need to go home, and they're like, oh, why do you need to go home? Oh, because I have this condition, this, that, and the other. So really learning how to respect yourself and do what's best for yourself, learning to say no, even though sometimes it is hard. Especially like when you are, young, like I want to go out and have fun and you know, let loose on the weekend. But also respecting that if I'm tired or I'm not feeling great, that rest is probably, the best option. Um, Also advocating and educating not just for the disease itself, but for the sake of like my friends and family understanding, so that if they ever meet someone else, they know how to handle a situation like this, or they just know how to handle me, so sharing what my days may look like. Um, a great example of this would be I'm actually really good friends with the owners of Coastline Country, Ryan and Mary Claire. Love them. I just went to their wedding and it was amazing.
Oh,
Um,
so great.
so beautiful. The people you meet through the dance community.
Mm-hmm.
But they, along with so many of my other friends, have been so like understanding of my situation, and because they've seen me at some of my lows too. And so when I do show up to dance, if I'm, looking faint, they're like, Rachel, let's sit down, let's sit in front of the fan. Like, you just take a break. Let's get you some water. So surrounding yourself with people that understand, or at least try to understand, and being empathetic and nurturing towards yourself, because you already have a lot on your plate. Why add more stress or judgment? Like, why compare yourself to other people? They have their own journey, they have their own issues. And it may be easy or easier because that's a shortcut to say, "Oh, I have it hard and nobody understands," but that's not going to help you in the long run. You know what I mean? You don't know what other people are dealing with. And having issues like this definitely isn't something that I would consider lucky,
Mm.
but it has brought some beautiful people into my life and changed my perspective. I'm grateful for every day. Every day I wake up, I'm like, it's a new chance to try something out, to show up, to just experience life and what life has to offer. Showing gratitude for yourself and your body for showing up even on the hard days and the bad days, and
Yeah.
really just eliminating like that stereotype of needing to show up perfect. Like show up as you are,
Hmm.
mentally, physically.
Mm. Yeah, I love what you said about like having people around who are there to support you and love you, but being transparent, at least to a degree, is what also helps them to be even more understanding. Otherwise, people may be confused. And as humans, then we start
Right.
reading stories and we're judgmental.
Right.
And but I love what you said about like sharing about what a day looks like or what it
Mm-hmm.
looks like when things are not okay. Because for me, like my depression was, I feel overall very easily hidden. For anyone who wasn't digging any deeper, it was just easily hidden. I was always high.
Right.
Yeah, I was always, and if I came home and I wasn't in a good mood or if I was exhausted, it was more attributed to the day, not
Right.
there was something else I was going through. And
Right.
so I'll never forget, I had a friend who I thought like I was having just kind of a normal conversation with, and this friend would be like, "What was that?" And I'm like, "What was what?" And they're like, your eyebrows did something, and what are you thinking right now?" And I'm like, "Oh my
That was
God."
beautiful. Yeah. You're like, okay, which? Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, depression looked like crying in private, screaming into my pillow, and then waking up the next day feeling okay and having a job to do.
Putting a
It's
smile on your face.
exactly at 6 a.m., 7 a.m., whether it was kids, whether it was homeschool, whether it was an audition or coaching or whatever it was like, all right, get up, do the dang thing. Like that's what depression looked like, not like what I saw on um TV at the time
Yeah.
when TV
Yeah.
was a thing, but where it's, like a mopey head walking around with
Yeah.
a cloud. I'm like, no, I don't have depression. That's not how I
Right.
feel. Now, do I feel like desperate and anxious and so just fatigued at life at times, and especially throughout like my cycle, which kind of pointed a little bit to like a prolonged postpartum, like a chronic
Mm,
postpartum depression after having 3 kids. So it's just, I think the idea of sharing what it looks like, what it can look like, little symptoms to look for, questions to ask, like not even, or for me, if you say, "How are you doing?" I'm doing great. I'm amazing.
right. That's
How are
the
you
thing
really
for
doing?
sure. It's so easy to hide when you're, a positive, happy person. Someone asks you how you're doing. Like, are you really going to
Exactly.
open up with, actually, I'm doing horrible, you know?
Yeah. The only people I ever opened up to, which is kind of funny,
Phew.
is the drive-through people, because
Yeah.
they
Because you don't
say
have to see him again.
you don't have to see it again, but they never listened either. So they say, "Hey, welcome to such and such. How's your day going?" And I would go, "I'm terrible. I'm suicidal. I hate life." And they'd be, "Great. Okay. Is this what you ordered?" And I'm like, "See, nobody cares."
That's so bad. Oh my gosh. But it's so
So like,
true. Like, they're not actually listening. They're just
yeah. So if any of them would have
zoned
had
out.
a mic and like heard me,
Yeah.
they would have been like, "Wait, what? Like, are you okay?"
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then I would have had a decision to make. Am I going
Yeah.
to continue to play it off? But those are
Right.
the only people I ever opened up to. I've actually never shared
Wow.
that.
Wow. That totally makes sense, though. I feel like a lot of people share that experience. Interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So making it more just normalized that, hey, this is what feeling sucky feels like, and here's what I need in that moment. And the people who love you the most and who are truly your friends are going to be okay with that. And they're going to adjust and they're going to say, "Okay, Rachel, let me take you home. Let me walk into the parking lot."
Absolutely.
I'm not going to object and call you a party pooper or, things like that.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that a scary step to take? To say, oh my gosh, like if I do share this, if I am vulnerable, there is a chance, it's a very small chance, but there is a chance that my friend, my family member, my spouse, my partner, whatever, doesn't agree or doesn't want to take care of me or doesn't actually love me and brushes me off or doesn't try to help. Now, you would hope that isn't the case. And I feel like most often it is not the case. We get in our heads thinking that we have to be this perfect person or show up in a certain way. But I mean, at least from my experience, when I have opened up, like to my close friends and family, like they care about you. They care about me. They want to help.
Yeah, I think in my experience, that's very true. And I've also had illuminated the people who probably
Mm,
shouldn't be in my life. And that's
exactly.
hard. And that is scary. That's really scary. It's scary to think if I share this, then there is a chance that I will not be accepted or
Hmm.
misunderstood or, written off. I mean, I feel like as a mom, I'm guilty of that. I like, oh my God, I won't even go into all the stories, but like, I mean, one time Aaron broke his collarbone and he's like, "Oh," and I'm like, "Shake it off. You're fine," like stop it,
Yeah.
and not realizing literally, I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't.
Oh.
So, I mean, I've got plenty of best mom of the year stories,
Oh
where
yeah.
dang, I could have been such a better listeners
We all make
but
mistakes.
yeah. So like knowing that is kind of key
Hmm.
to your courageousness of sharing. Most of the time, people are going to understand, people are going to be willing to accommodate because they love you. And yeah, sometimes people aren't. And sometimes people surprise you in,
Yes.
in the worst way.
Yes.
And I think it's painful, but ultimately, the sacrifice is you continuing to stay in hiding. You continue to
Absolutely.
push yourself in a way that is unhealthy. So, like, for you to be healthy, your best self, so that you can be a light to others,
Right.
that might mean that there's shedding of relationship, and that's
Yeah.
scary and hard.
Absolutely. That's a beautiful point. And I've seen that too with my experience with mental health struggles, but also with endometriosis and women's health of people just not being who you thought they were. And like you said, it totally does. It breaks your heart. It hurts in the moment. But then you realize, you kind of have this moment of realization where you're like, well, I don't really want someone in my circle that doesn't authentically, truly care for me. It's kind of like a light bulb moment after you are hurt, but you realize, shedding people from your circle that are wishy-washy or not really there when it matters, like you have to do it, for the greater sake of yourself.
Yeah. And it's possible also that those people, they had a purpose in your life for the time that they were there, and
Right.
you're on to the next season. And this next
Right.
season is you taking care of yourself and being vulnerable. And not everyone's going to be on board with that. And it doesn't necessarily make them
Absolutely.
a bad person, but it does
No.
maybe a person that you're just not meant to be in community
Right.
with anymore. That's hard.
Absolutely. It is. It is. And I think like compatibility in relationships and in friendships is so often overlooked, because we look at all these other things like similarities and differences and da 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 da, which are important. But if at the end of the day you are on two completely different paths where you can't see eye to eye or support each other, wherever that may be, because yes, we all have our own stories and our own hardships, but if at the end of the day you can't support each other or you feel like you're not being supported or vice versa, maybe they did serve, a purpose for you in the past and maybe you were good friends and whatever, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to stay forever or that it's healthy to keep them in your life, and that also doesn't make them bad. Multiple things can be true. They could just not understand. They could have a lack of, you know, being able to understand what you're going through based on their personal experience.
Yeah. So, what would you say to the person who is recognizing either
Mm.
mental illness or instability or a physical, disease or condition they're dealing with? How would you recommend that they start to open up and share?
I think ultimately it's always going to be difficult. There is a quite a bit of vulnerability that comes with sharing, any kind of burden or hardship, but you are not a burden. Something may burden you, but you are not a burden. You're never a burden for sharing. You're never a burden for, you know, harnessing these imperfections, if that's what you want to call them. We're all struggling with something at some point in our lives, and understanding that when you come forth with your story, the right people will support you and, advocate for you and empower and inspire and listen. You may lose, some friends, but in the end, that's just different paths, different compatibility. But to remember that at the end of the day, we are all human. Nobody's perfect. We all have a unique story. Don't be afraid to share it. You know what I mean? Like, there's no expectation, there is no standard. As much as we feel the pressure to meet a standard from society or other people, or even just some narrative we're spinning in our head, come forth as you are, whatever that may look like, and the right people will be there for you.
Yeah, amen to that. I love that. I part of my yes, yes. Part of my my brand is all out as is, and the as is exactly
Mm,
as you are. And the people who are meant to be in your life in this season at this time will be there. And
beautiful.
yeah, and I think my advice would definitely be very similar. And just going back to what we said about you're not alone, no matter
Mm-hmm.
how unique your situation feels, I don't care how crazy it is, it's still something that someone else can relate to, or willing to listen, willing to be there for you. I love what you just said about not being a burden. Like, you are not a burden. Sure, you carry burdens, and we're meant to like share each other's burdens,
Right.
to help carry the load, to carry the yoke with each other. But you yourself are not a burden, and that's I'm gonna s- I'm going to say that that's a lie that you're choosing to believe. And
Right.
so I want to say to our friends out there who you are saying you are feeding yourself that lie. I want to encourage you to feed yourself a different lie. A lie that and this one is the truth, but it might feel like a lie when you're sharing.
Right.
You're worthy, you're unique, you're amazing. You have so much to contribute to this world. You are here for a reason and a purpose, and every one of your moments, the high times and the low times can be purposeful, and can serve you, serve others, and impact the world on super great levels.
Beautiful.
So yeah.
Beautiful.
How can I support you, Rachel? How can I, Adia, kickstart my company? Like, what are some ways that I can be supportive of you and your mission?
Honestly, I think just keeping like an open like conversation, open book through either, the dance community or even just on social media. I actually had this idea that I haven't fully tapped into, but you can give me your advice, of this concept called dancing with the scars instead of dancing with the
Oh,
stars, because I have, some scars from my incisions, but also like metaphorical scars of like, mental health struggles. And so I'm like, that could be a fun kind of idea, project, journey. I don't know what that could look like, but I feel like we could brainstorm something with that, of, mental health and physical health and endometriosis and women in these kind of communities, and sharing those stories with each other and through dance.
I love that. I love that. I would love to be a part of whatever that looks like. And I would love to, if that meant a collab of some sort, I would love that.
Yeah.
That is so special. Through Nashville Dance Fest in particular, we have a movement, like an uproaring. I don't know if that makes sense, but like a movement that's getting some power under it, and it's Dancing Heels, HEAL.
Oh, beautiful.
And so that kind of goes along with that. And then also I do like dance and wellness, try to
Hmm.
really incorporate more of that healing off the dance floor as well as on. And that sounds like what the Dancing with the Scars kind of feels like. It's like, sure, there's a physical dance element potentially, but then there's also the sharing, the uniting, the connecting and collaborating with others who are going through similar experiences. I think we use the dance
Absolutely.
floor in such a good way, but in a lot of ways it's kind of like a band-aid
Yeah.
uh, as we're going through things. And then you go home, then you
Yeah.
go deal with your life.
Yeah. Hmm. What
And
about with you? How can I support you in the best way possible?
oh man, well, I love this idea of helping people feel seen.
Yeah.
So I'd love to talk with you about what it might look like to yeah, have those conversations, even if it meant like at a dance event or they
Right.
centered around something like that, just giving people a voice and freedom to share, but also freedom to know they're not alone. Like more than
Right.
anything, to know that they're not alone, because that is such that inhibits our power when we feel like we're isolated.
Hmm.
And so yeah, I would love just like you're doing, like keep sharing, keep showing up. And I think it'd be really neat to bring more of that awareness to the audience that I have, because I'm certain that in this audience there are people who struggle with endometriosis, struggle
It's a
with
mouthful. I can't even say it sometimes. I'm like, I'm just calling it endo from now on. It's so
endo.
much easier. There's so many vowels. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, don't ask me to spell it. Like, do not ask me to spell it. But yeah, so that would be awesome. Like, I think this is a beautiful conversation that we've had. I hope that it'll reach a lot of people. I think if we,
Hmm.
kind of share with our audiences and ask them to share, like
Right.
what in this conversation stood out to you, because if you
Hmm.
share that piece, it's going to make a difference. It's going to resonate with someone else, and there's going to be
Right.
a domino effect that could be world changing.
Right. Like the more you hear from other people, the more you realize you're not alone.
Yeah. Let's do it,
Beautiful.
girlfriend.
I love it. I love it. Virtual high five. Woo!
And how can people find you on social
Um,
media and otherwise?
I think the best way is honestly through social media. My main Instagram is Rachel underscore Ratelle, Ratelle. I do have like a side social media for like TikTok. That is my actual brand name, so Raise Your Vibe. And then through that, I post all the time about like my website and how to find me elsewhere. So people can find it through that. Right now, my website is glitching out, which is awesome. We love technology. This has actually never happened before, but it will be back up by tonight.
Perfect. And yeah, you can definitely find it on social media. And mine is Adia Dance, typically everywhere. So Adia, Adia Dance, and Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, website, except for my email because somehow it wasn't available. So it's
How
dance.
do people take this?
Yeah. So I want to meet the person who has the Adia Dance.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love it. I love it. Well, I'm
Yeah.
hoping people can explore your page and see what you have to offer besides and beyond dance, which I mean, you're an incredible dancer in and of itself, but as a person, you're just so radiant and genuine, and your story deserves to be shared and heard. And I think there's so much to learn from this conversation. So thank
Absolutely.
you.
Same thing right back at you, Rachel. Like you're such
Thank
a
you.
beautiful person, radiant, absolutely radiant.
You're so sweet. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you so much for being here. And if this episode brought you clarity, gave you a shift, or helped you feel more alive, I'd love it if you shared it with a fellow leader, dreamer, or visionary in your life. I always love hearing what resonates with you, so please feel free to send me a DM, and it would mean so much to me if you left a 5-star review to help more people find this space. If you're ready to take this deeper, check the show notes for ways we can work or grow together. Whether you're leading from a stage, in your community, or in your own healing, just remember this. Your power isn't in who you're trying to become, it's in who you already are. So keep showing up, keep moving forward, and keep living all out as is.